Joystiq Streams has gone to plaid. It's 4 p.m. on Thursday afternoon, and that means that we are playing some video games for you. My name is Anthony John Agnello, Joystiq Community Manager. Joining us today is a very special guest to play Child of Light. We are joined by the writer of Child of Light, Jeffrey Yohalem, and some people might say to themselves, oh, well, the writer, oh, I don't play video games for story. Well, what kind of person are you? Stories in video games are awesome, and Jeffrey has written a couple of really great stories. He's the writer of Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, and the writer of Far Cry 3. And, Jeffrey, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
We also have, hanging out with you in the chat, Mr. Alexander Slawinski, News Content Director of Joystiq.com, and he is going to be feeding your questions to me and Jeffrey, and he is also going to be passing out some codes, download codes for Child of Light.
Hey Jeffrey, spell protagonist.
P-R-O... Wait, I don't know what comes after that. Yeah, over.
No, go. No, seriously, I need it. Protagonist. I spell it
seriously?
wrong every time.
I thought you were hitting this Protagonist.
Thank you.
Wow, I just destroyed those statues. For everybody watching, we are playing Child of Light pretty much right from the beginning. What you are seeing is the first major boss fight of the game, and the aftermath of the first major boss fight. And Aurora, I was about to say a Venetian prince, but she's actually an Austrian princess.
She's the daughter of a duke. She's actually just plain old nobility.
She's plain old nobility? Oh,
yeah,
man.
In fact, she doesn't inherit. In Austria, you were appointed by the king to be a duke, so her father is the duke, and she is nothing.
Shone upon a land.
She is not. Alright, see, the crown threw me.
Yes, but you'll notice, okay, so as we progress, she points out to almost everyone she meets that she is not a real princess. Her father made that crown as a cardboard crown, and they were watching Hamlet, and the father put it on her head.
So, Jeffrey, bring everyone up to speed. Everybody who's not familiar with Child of Light, the basics are this. You are playing a turn-based role-playing game where you can have a two-person party max, yes?
Yes, but you can have also a stable of party members within your hand. That you can, so if a party member collapses, you can swap that party member out, and you can swap out party members at any point.
And you gain levels, you unlock spells and new abilities on a ability grid, not dissimilar to classics in the genre like Final Fantasy X. But when you explore the world, you're on a two-dimensional plane. You're walking from right to left, which has some similarity to Vanilleware's RPGs like Odin Sphere and Princess Crown.
Hey, Anthony, fun fact. I can't add Susan, so you need to add her.
Oh! Alright, everyone, we're going to have a little moment where you're going to be looking at dialogue, and Let's all go to the lobby! The reason
Well, what's about to happen, too? You said you walk from right to left. In fact, Aurora's about to get her wings, and then she can fly wherever she wants.
So, before we go any further, tell me a little bit about the history of Child of Light. When did Child of Light go from a passion project that you and the team really, really wanted to pursue while you were making these gigantic, violent blockbusters, to something that you were like, this is what it's going to be, this is how we're going to make it, and onward to what it became?
Well, what happened was I was finishing the editing of the Far Cry 3 script, doing like pickups and mocap and various other things. And Pat, the creative director, was done at that point and was deciding what he wanted to do next. And he had an opportunity to pitch a game to Ubisoft because we made, he's been there, I think, 10 years at this point, and I've been there for 7 years, and we made a game every year. And so there's a lot more than the ones you listed at the beginning of my intro. Every year there's a new game, and so.
Your first was a Rainbow Six game? Is that correct?
Yeah, it was Vegas 2, which was a unique challenge in that it was originally an expansion pack, and we had to expand it into a full-length game while keeping the original script and all of the levels done for the expansion pack. So basically, I created a story that wrapped the expansion pack in a much bigger story.
So, at what point did you say this was the moment that we can definitely get this made? Like, we can turn it into something that, like, you know, this isn't something that exists in our brains. We're going to convince Ubisoft that we have the technology, it will be something that people will respond to. What was that moment?
Well, I mean, basically, Pat was off after Far Cry, and he wanted to pitch a JRPG because that's been his favorite kind of game since he was little. And so he wanted to make a JRPG, and we had the UB Art Framework, which is this in-house engine that had been created for Rayman Origins that allows you to incorporate concept art directly into the game. And so he had wanted to play on the paintings of Amano. And Amano loved fairies. He did a whole book of fairy art, and so Pat was looking through that book, and he also, was familiar with the work of turn of the 20th century fairy tale artists like John Bower and Arthur Rackham, and so he started to think about what if we did that kind of a world. And so he came to me in my off time. I was working on Far Cry during the day, and he said, I have an idea. I want to make a game called Child of Light. That name feels interesting to me. I like this fairy tale art. And he played a soundtrack that he had created using music from Amelie and Final Fantasy, saying this is kind of the mood that
that's a perfect combination. That's a perfect combination. The sound of those of those sources matches the look of this perfectly.
Well, it really has stayed true to that. And so he said, Child of Light, what occurs to you when I say the name Child of Light? And we started from that, where I thought about it. And, I thought about turn of the century fairy tale art, and I started to go back and read a bunch of classic fairy tales. And then I thought about the books that I loved when I was a kid, like A Wrinkle in Time and Narnia and the Oz books, the ones written before Frank L. Baum's son started taking over for him. I read every Oz book up until the point where there's this magical moment where all of a sudden the books change from being written by him and the publisher doesn't tell you that. And I was so pissed. I remember saying, I'm never reading another Oz book because he stopped writing them. And so they're all stories about a young kid, usually a girl, who stumbles upon a door to another world. And in that world, the kid becomes central to everything that's going on. Whereas in our world, as a kid, you're repressed and held down by society and by your parents.
Wait, go back.
Susan Art!
Hi, sorry, you missed the chest.
How is this? Oh, I missed a chest?
Yes, you did.
Alright, I missed a chest. In the cathedral room?
Well, you can just, once she's done commenting on what's happening, you can just walk back to the right.
I found a confession.
Oh yeah, the confessions are one of the many collectibles. Nope, right, your other right, there you go.
Oh, I got it.
I
got it.
No, right, your other right. Go
down, down. Oh, yeah, there, cool, down.
Jeffrey, can you see the stream at this point?
Yes, the confessions are written in perfect sonnet form. They're the most complex poems in the game.
I think I got it. It was the flying treasure, right?
Yes.
So everybody who's watching, when I am a little bit ahead of what everyone is seeing.
I know, I'm sorry.
So when you're like, go right, I'm like, there's a rock there. That is a rock. And if I run into it, I will stub my toe. Jeffrey, I definitely see the Amano influence in the style. That watercolor, not quite impressionistic, but like ethereal quality to the look.
I mean, in answer to your question, we went off on our own for about a month, just Pat and I, and came up with what the world was going to be and the simple story we were going to tell. We created a little storybook using John Bower paintings, again matching, as you said, the influence of Amano and John Bower together. And then we actually we bound this book and gave it to Ubisoft and said, this is the game we're pitching. And they said, well, we don't quite understand it, but we think you guys know what you're doing, so let's do it.
That's nice. It's nice to have that kind of trust. Was that trust maintained throughout the development process? Were you allowed to, just sort of do what you wanted as you went?
Yes. In fact, Ubisoft never gave me any notes.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. And in fact, there were moments where Pat and I actually asked, what do you think about this? And they said, well, wait, this game is authored by you guys. You guys need to decide.
That is, I take it that's very unusual when you're working with a large publisher.
Yes, I mean, Ubisoft loves experiments and their French roots. They love this idea of an intellectual experiment where you have a set of guidelines and then you execute them. And so in our case, we somehow entered this magical territory that the rules were, that we got to decide. And they stuck to that. Once they had that rule set that this game is going to be authored by this team and we're not going to interfere with that, then they wanted to stick with it the whole way.
So, Alexander, Susan, and myself, we're about to date ourselves by talking about this, but we're all big fans of Grandia.
Yes!
We're all Grandia nerds. Susan and Alexander are Grandia 2 nerds. I tend to be a Grandia 1 nerd. But you can feel the style of Grandia's battle system in Child of Light. That sort of process of seeing where somebody is going to take their turn and making part of your strategy blocking them from taking their turn. How did you go about the process of deciding, what kind of active RPG you wanted to make when you're pairing it with this story and this style that you'd come up with?
Well, from the very beginning, when we planned the whole story, we started out with the idea that it was going to have this battle system. Like, for Pat is a huge JRPG fan, as I said, from childhood, and so his favorite JRPGs were Final Fantasy VI and Grandia 2.
Take out the spider first.
Yeah, so Final Fantasy VI, of course, you see it here when you land on an enemy, you enter a battle arena and everyone lines up and takes their turn, and then Grandia is about playing with what that turn means. And so, basically, metaphorically, when we were coming up with the story, we wanted to tell a coming-of-age story because in an RPG, you're leveling. So from the very beginning, it was about the core mechanic telling the story of Aurora growing up. And so the battles needed to be strategic because we wanted to create this metaphor that, as you grow up, you fight strategic battles in your life. I mean, I think many of us are not trying to aim at other people and take, and throw rocks or, you don't go in your classroom at school and throw a bottle to distract your teacher while you sneak out of the classroom.
Yes, I never go out and throw rocks at people. I would never.
But more importantly, that kind of game is about aiming and reacting. And so we wanted to create a game that was about strategy and about thinking, and then that the metaphor would be that as you grow, you fight battles in which you have to think and overcome your foes through strategy.
I badly want Rubella's outfit. I'm going to say that for everybody's benefit. I think I could make the Jester hat work. I could make that look.
I personally appreciated that the Jester was a girl, because Jesters are such fun and interesting characters, but they're always guys.
Excuse me,
so I
Susan,
really appreciated that.
She's a woman, okay? let's use the proper terminology. Okay?
I'm glad you liked it. It was one of the major things that I insisted on, and there was discussions of making both Jesters guys, and I said no, she has to be a girl, it has to be a brother and a sister, and we stuck it out, so I'm really glad you liked it.
Why
was there pressure to make them both guys?
Because there is this sense that that Pat, the creative director, had, that it's about the camaraderie between two brothers, and that two brothers have this intense relationship that a brother and a sister couldn't have. And I said, BS. I think that a brother and a sister could totally have that relationship, and that I think more importantly, that just because a lot of entertainment has portrayed brothers as being closer than a brother and a sister doesn't make it that way.
Right.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. And you get, I mean, like, the beautiful thing is it's not the same dynamic. You know, the relationship with a brother and sister is very different than between a sister and a brother and a brother, and you don't get to see that explored too regularly.
No, and I mean, what it loses visually is obviously that if it had been two brothers, you would have had identical twins, and then you would have had comedy and tragedy and abstract where they're identical.
See, but would they have been bros? That's...
No, I never. But anyway...
That's why I love actually having developers on these streams, because to us, we just go, okay, oh, cool, there's a female character, that's really great. But to hear that much thought was going on for very specific reasons behind the scenes, I love getting the chance to have that kind of insight, so we're very, very lucky that you joined us today.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't get that chest on my head.
Which one? The one that was flying back there?
No, the one hidden in that little belt.
Oh, in that hut?
Yeah, one of the things, because I really appreciate that exploring all of these areas. There's so much stuff tucked away in little places because it is so lovely. I mean, it's just stupidly gorgeous, this game. It's kind of ridiculous. So to have the incentive to find every last nook and cranny is really, really appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, our level designers worked very hard on it, and in fact, we had, at the end of the project, one of the lead level designers from Assassin's Creed 3 actually came on and just placed the chests.
Oh, cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, and the wishes, the little balls of light, and so people were just really excited to come help. It felt, you know, it's a funny, wonderful, unique project in that we're inside this big studio, but we were kind of in the crack of the studio, just I guess like, you know, the crack that Lucy entered in the wardrobe to get into Narnia, but it's like that we were in this strange place where people from the big projects would come and actually help out kind of behind the scenes. And sometimes it was official and sometimes not. It was really grassroots in the studio.
Jeffrey, Susan and I have gotten this, like, really far more in-depth than we planned on conversation on Joystiq's podcast this past week, talking about RPGs and sort of the classic Final Fantasy series, not only because Child of Light came out this past week, but also a lot of people have been playing the recent re-release of Final Fantasy X, and we got on the subject of pacing and how tricky it is to pace an RPG. And especially with like how you balance, you know, activities, combat, exploration, with story elements. And I'm curious to hear how you guys went about it. How did you approach pacing and saying, you know, this is the speed at which things need to happen?
Well, it's definitely a give and take situation because we knew the story we wanted to tell from the very beginning, and there were these key beats that were always set. And then, for me, I approach storytelling in games as if the game is a director and the player is an actor. And so the director is trying to entice the director is trying to entice the actor to, you know, feel the right emotions for their character, rather than, you know, a bad director says to a player, cry here. A good director tries to encourage the actor to get into character, and then that allows them to feel things at the right spot. So for me, the gameplay itself is going to tell the story because that's the performance apparatus that the player has. So if you have like a comic actor like Jim Carrey, you don't cast him in a Holocaust film. Or
God, I seriously hope not.
Right, well, it's his strength is comedy, and so you play to that strength. So in Child of Light, it was battling and leveling and gaining partners. So the game...
Wasn't Jim Carrey in a Holocaust film?
Wait, what?
I mean, The Truman Show is the closest for me that he got to very,
was
very
it Robin
serious
Williams?
acting.
He was
Robin Williams.
He was in
Vietnam.
I'll look it up. Keep going.
No, there was. All right, no, I think I know what you're thinking of. It was The Majestic, where he comes back from World War II, and everybody thinks he's some other guy, but he's not. That's...
I missed that one.
Everybody missed that
that's a good
one.
reason, yes.
Susan,
So the idea is the story gets told through the performance that the player is putting on, by entering a battle, by gaining experience, where experience actually means experience, and then as Aurora levels, she grows up, and so, and then the partners are very important. That if you can take any partner in this game with an exclamation point over their head, you can pass and keep going. There's no invisible wall forcing you to do the main quest, and in fact, you can miss a third of the game if you do that.
So you can skip like a bunch of the characters?
Oh, all of them. You don't have to get a single character in this game.
Wow.
And so that's the story, that Aurora, and in fact, Aurora has different lines that happen if you go to, you're going to meet Finn in a little while in the well. If you go into the well, let's say, and then you decide you don't want to help him anymore, and you just fly out of the well and keep going, she has a set of lines where she says, my father's more important than helping anyone. I need to get home to my father.
Wow.
And so it's a performance about, but if you do that, then every battle you enter gets harder and harder and harder. And so if you don't have any partners...
Don't skip Finn. He's got some serious elemental magic. You don't want to be skipping him.
Right, and so that's what I love about that is, as an actor, then what you're seeing is that's real motivation. That I have a motivation to work with other people in my life in order to make my life easier. And so that's the truth.
Susan, when you were playing, was there ever a moment where you thought to yourself, well, I'm not going to help that person?
No.
Never. You were like...
because everybody you meet is so interesting, and they're so distinct. And the things they're quests, for want of a better word, the things they want help with, are all, you feel kind of like a jerk turning in debt, like, the mouse who wants to impress his lady friend, it's sweet. Rubella wants to find her brother, that's sweet, so yeah, no, I was never tempted to just be like, yeah, well, sucks to be you, I got plans.
but the interesting, I wouldn't either, but I tried to make sure that if you decided to do that, there's some people who move through their lives and are lone wolves and don't want, anyone to help them, like Jack Nicholson's character in As Good as It Gets at the beginning. And so it's like, well, maybe that's a way of living, and game systems then reflect what happens if you do that. If you're 60 years old and you have no friends and you need to move a couch into your new apartment, then you're in big trouble.
Yeah,
go ahead.
It definitely does not club you over the head and say, you have to do this now, either. It's very much like, when the time comes to help someone, you can just walk on by.
Right.
And that, they're not in your party anymore, and you're off just doing your own thing. So, it's definitely anti-RPG that way. It's very unusual that way.
Right, and that was part of, again, because we were in a small independent team, we were able to do that, because usually with AAA you spend a lot of money on the main story, and so the producer does not want it to be skippable.
Right. One of the other things that I really appreciated about this game, because it feels very subversive to me, is you can go through fights without Aurora. She cannot even be the star of the combat. Just swap in, if you have other characters that you think make more sense, she doesn't even have to be present at all. And that was the first time I didn't have her in a fight at all. I felt, kind of naughty. I was like, oh, the star of the show isn't even in this fight. Wow,
Well, and there was originally a system that had been designed, you can see kind of the vestiges of it. There was a system that was designed in the conversations where if you paired two partners with each other, they would have a conversation. And that was when they got to know each other. And now those conversations play at the end of fights without that input. But originally, it's like if you paired Rubella with Finn, they would have a conversation. It was like they were meeting each other for the first time after the fight.
So, guys, I am right now going and upgrading my skills for the characters, mostly because I was like, oh man, I bet Aurora has been leveling up, and I have not used any of my points. Which was true.
Yep.
So, how should I prioritize with Rubella here? It looks like the path on the bottom doesn't really lead to many skills.
Sure it does. What are you talking about?
No, it doesn't lead to, like, special moves in fights.
Well, no, because she's a support character. So yeah, she's like everybody has an attack move, right? Like hers is tumble, and she's really good. But she's your healer.
Mm.
And she does ailment stuff, and
Right.
Yeah.
So I should check.
You know what you're doing. Like I think people should take advice from you, not from us.
After we're done leveling up, we'll move on over to the oculi.
Exactly. Please take me.
Jeffrey, that's another thing that when we were sort of steeped in RPG conversation, we were talking about like how you go about teaching people to play, and like, you know, I've been playing role-playing games for a long time now, and you know, obviously, you guys in the development staff, like, you made this because you love this type of game. But because you love this type of game, you have knowledge about how they work that somebody who may have never played one before, just, you know, nobody knows what a potion is or why you might use it. How, like, what's the process? How do you best communicate to somebody playing an RPG for the first time how everything is supposed to work? You know, is dialogue the quickest way for doing that, or do you want to just put them in interesting scenarios and make them figure it out?
No, it's very methodical, actually, and with this game, it's very important to me personally that it be accessible for people who have never played an RPG before. Like, the term RPG is not used in the game. You know, if anything, if it's ever mentioned, it's role-playing game written out. It's rarely mentioned because I feel like people who have never played one before don't know what one is. So
right.
Using that term, I think, alienates some people.
Yeah.
And so the idea was to use words that are always broad enough that anyone who is playing, even including, you know, my parents who don't know how to play video games, could still play the game. And so that's one way. But then the second way is that you can put the player into a situation again and again that teaches them a new tool, and that they can't pass that situation without learning it. For instance, at the very beginning of the game, Aurora has to push a crate to the side of an embankment in order to climb up and get over the embankment. And if she doesn't do that, then she can't get over the embankment. And so you throw the player into a situation where the only way out is to learn something. And then once they've learned it, you then move on and teach them something else. And then you combine those two things later on in the level. So later on, there's a puzzle with Aurora where she gets to push a box onto an elevator and then activate an oculi in the world in order to lower the elevator and then push the box off the elevator. And so that combines that you can activate oculi to make things happen in the environment with pushing a box.
So, like, what's the trick for making sure that doesn't feel patronizing, though? You know, Go ahead.
Sorry, I jumped on you there because it drives me crazy, some
Yeah.
of that stuff. And in fact, I like to err on the side of just letting players figure it out and not guiding them by the hand, because I think it's way more fun to figure it out yourself. And there are moments, like in the beginning of the game, there's a wishes tutorial where the control is taken away from the player and Igniculus hits one of the bushes and wishes come out of it, and then he trails and eats all of them. I would rather have not taken control from the player there, because I think it's way more fun to just figure it out yourself.
Okay, go to your menu. You've got all these oculi and you're not doing anything with them. Suddenly.
All right, well, hold on. I'm about to get eaten by a wolf. So let me hit the wolf in the face. Everybody's about to see the wolf that's trying.
No, fly over the wolf and hit him in the butt, and then you can do a surprise attack.
She knows.
These people.
Susan, you're just angry because I'm so good.
Yeah, you're really good at it.
I am so good at being an Austrian daughter. I'm not. I'm really not.
But so the key thing, I mean, there are two approaches. Either you make it very simple in a way that you know works, which is to take control from the player and teach them things little by little, which, like you said, can feel a bit patronizing. Or what you do is you create something where you don't do that, and then in playtests you watch in total despair as a bunch of players do exactly the opposite of what you thought was so clear, and then hate the game. And when that happens, it's a really, like, playtests, I go to a lot of playtests, and when I was designing the puzzles in AC, it was, like, super important, because until you've seen players, like, so angry at your design that they throw the controller, you feel it. You, like, it hurts. You know, it's like you've been shot a little bit, where it's like, God, I never want anyone to react to my game that way.
Wow.
But I think that it's better to err on the side of too hard. So you go to a playtest, you watch these people have a lot of trouble, and then you analyze what's wrong, what are they not understanding, and then you try to figure out the simplest way to convey that thing so that you don't make it too easy. And then you try another playtest, and then so you keep backtracking from hard to medium, and then there's a point that you hit where everyone is getting it, and that's where you stop. And that's how I would do it, and that's how I did it with the puzzles in AC. But again, that approach requires enough time to iterate again and again, and a lot of times AAA studios don't have that kind of luxury.
So one thing that I adored when I found this out about the development of the game was, and this was, I guess, 2 or 3 years ago now, whenever the second Skylanders came out, and I was at a demo for the second Skylanders and talking to a producer on that, and I said, why isn't there a jump button in this? You're playing as this colorful, beautiful character, and you're running around, jumping all over the place. Why isn't, like slashing and stuff, why can't you jump? And he looks at me and he says, well, when a kid picks up a game, they find the first thing that has an immediate reaction, and then they just do it over and over and over and over again. And we thought, we're going to take away that ability. It was something that they, planned for. But, at the same time, I sit there and I think to myself, why isn't that jump button there? Like, who cares? I think that would be awesome. Do that anyway. Is there anything that you built into Child of Light where people thought, that's just plain not going to work? And it ended up working nicely.
That's a tough question. I don't think, I think that there was a question about tuning the battle system and whether certain specific things would work or not work. At first, the cast bar at the bottom, or the timeline at the bottom of the screen, that was very confusing to a lot of players. And so, there was a sense of, can we teach this so that it works properly without, having someone sit down? Because in fact, when Pat or one of the game designers sits down with a player and explains, the way that you would teach someone how to surf, you teach them how to use the timeline, then it's really fun. And so the question is, and this comes back to your tutorial question, how you teach that to someone. And so, but I think, so there is this process in game design, and especially UI design, user interface, where you have a visual artist trying to make the thing make sense visually, so you just get it. And so, the cast, that timeline started out as something bigger, and the figures on it, when Igniculus hovers over a figure, it wasn't highlighted. So, of course, when there were two spiders that you were fighting against, it's unclear which spider you were slowing. And so there are a lot of simplification processes that go in to explain what's going on, and try to make things like easily gettable just by looking at them. And so I think that happened a lot in terms of the battle system. Otherwise, I don't think there was anything that in this game where it was like, this is totally not going to work, and it did. But, we were trying, with Child of Light, we were trying to take gameplay and other processes that we were familiar with, that we had seen work in other places, and combine them and also, you know, try to create a aesthetic that was unique surrounding them, and that was our challenge. So, you know, as you know, if this were a game like Braid or like Journey, you know, then you're developing a gameplay completely from scratch, and that requires all kinds of, I think, moments where you feel like, what am I doing? Maybe I should just scrap this and start over. And then it turns out to be great.
It's always a... Oh.
Sorry, that was just a text. Ignore it.
That wasn't...
I'm sorry, we're playing Child of Light. Call it, okay? You are not slowing these guys at all, and it's driving me crazy. I'm watching you, and I'm like, put the stupid Firefly over the guy, because he goes really fast in the casting zone, and slow him so that Aurora can get and do her move and interrupt him and kill him.
Oh my god. Susan. I had no idea that I could slow these guys down when I was casting. I thought I only had to interrupt them.
Well, gee, if you had paid attention to the tutorial that you find so insulting.
I don't read! Susan, I got a confession. I don't know how to read.
Oh, God.
I will say, I know that some people don't like it, but the rhyming for us was an example of something that, like, originally, in terms of, I guess, coming back to your question about pacing, we thought, you know, with every story you're supposed to tell it with extreme economy, you know, where you don't waste a word. You know, every word is supposed to be there for a reason, and every scene is supposed to be there for a reason. And so, at the very beginning, a lot of the story was told very simply, and, you know, both Pat and I believed that there shouldn't be much text at all. And then when we started the rhyming, you know, when people on the team and elsewhere played it, suddenly they felt like the rhyming was a part of the world of the game, and that it gave an aesthetic quality to the experience that they enjoyed. And so we discovered that we could actually put more lines of dialogue rather than less, which is the first time we've ever encountered that in a game, where people were asking for more. So that was a surprise for us, you know, that in fact the final game ended up with more scenes because people were asking for more. Which, I mean, literally as a writer, you know, you always encounter, I've written too much, I need to cut, and in this case it was more.
Well, I'm curious about how this has compared to your other writing experiences during your time at Ubisoft, because, you know, as you said, when you guys were making Child of Light, nobody came in to stop you. They just said, do what you're gonna do, and whatever you're gonna do, have at it. So, like, you know, how does that compare to, you know, working on an Assassin's Creed game and writing that script?
Well, I mean, in some ways it's very similar. As a writer, I had a lot of freedom at Ubisoft because I was also involved in design. And so because I was involved in design, I wasn't kind of put off in a corner where it's like, you write this thing that envelops our game. I was there planning the game with everybody from the very beginning. And that's always been my experience. You know, you have a room of like 6 or 7 people who are the directors of the game and at the beginning, and we're creating the game from scratch on paper all around the room and figuring out what the game is going to be. And I was always part of that. And my challenge was whatever the game was going to be. Like with Brotherhood, you know, it had to do with sending assassins on missions and also leveling those assassins and using them to attack people, and then also, you know, taking the city of Rome and improving it and making it better. And so when I encounter that, and the name of the game is Brotherhood, then my job is to thematically figure out how to tell a story using that gameplay. And so it became a game about becoming a leader and about, you know, the difficulties that happen during that process. And you know, I was reading a lot of Machiavelli at the time, and so in fact Ezio's actions in the game illustrate a lot of Machiavelli's principles of good leadership. And the enemies in that game, the bad guys that you kill, they use policies that he associates with leading through fear, which he thinks is way worse than leading through love. And so the game is actually an illustration of Machiavelli's principles of leadership, and it's using the gameplay systems because Ezio has to send assassins on missions and send them to attack them. And so he's becoming a leader, and he's cleaning up the city of Rome. And so that thematically all work together. And then once I discover that theme, then I go off and I write the script. and I'm working with level designers, and I know they have a rough idea of what their level is going to be, and then I figure out how to make that level fit with the story, and vice versa, where I have an idea of what I need from a level, and they have to figure out how to make their level fit with my story. So that's been my process throughout on every game, and some of it is, that I very much enjoy the limitations of having to create basically a puzzle using existing pieces. So it's like, how am I going to fit this in? I have a goal, which is I want to tell this story, and then it's how does this piece fit? How does this piece fit? How can I rejigger it slightly so that it fits? And so I like that process. Whereas with Child of Light, like you said, I got to create the puzzle pieces themselves. But to some degree, still the art director gets to say, I want this environment, I want this kind of a feeling, and so it's always collaborative.
Hey Jeffrey, there's actually a question in chat. Do you have any of your writing online, like a WordPress?
No, I don't. I know that the Writers Guild has the scripts in LA, but I didn't put any of it online. I'm not sure I can. I basically work 24/7 on video games because they're my passion. So I don't really write outside of Ubi because I'm always working. Like I said, I've released the game every year, so there hasn't really been time to do anything else.
Are you allowed to mention what you're writing right now?
Well, I'm no, I shouldn't talk about it. I mean,
it's a Far Cry Child of Light crossover.
Yeah. No, it's a blood dragon child.
It's just between you, us,
and everyone watching.
No, I mean you'll see soon enough, but so it's I mean literally when you finish a game at a AAA studio, you immediately go work on something else. And so even before Child of Light was out, we were all working on something else. Not everyone. Some people were preparing the day one patch, but it's a strange experience where you're very passionate about something, and because of the way the studio system works, it's also a job.
What is it like wrapping work on a project?
It's very depressing when you really go through a period, especially because the game finishes and then it's not out for a month.
Yeah.
And so that period of where you've made this thing and you don't know how people are going to receive it, and you're also starting work on something else when you don't know how people are going to receive the thing you just finished, and you put a lot of your heart and soul into it. I think when you write something that you care about, it's like standing up on a table in a room full of people and doing a song and dance, and then hoping they don't throw tomatoes at you. and if depending on how, on some level, if you can be true and you can be very truly vulnerable and really expose yourself to criticism, that's when the thing ends up being very, very good. And so that process is very exhausting and scary. And so that last month you don't sleep very much, and you're trying to work on the new thing, but you're also really obsessing about the old thing. And you just have to try to deal with it. I mean, a lot of people will book a vacation. They save their vacation days, and so when the project is done, they go on vacation for a month to deal with that.
One of my all-time favorite quotes from any artist of any kind is from Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and he's talking about what you need to do when you write. And Gabriel Garcia Marquez says, "Don't ever look at anything you've ever made after you put it down. Just put it down, declare it done, because you'll go mad if you look at it again. Because you'll think, oh, well, I wish I'd done this, I wish I had done that. Nothing is ever truly finished." How do you tell yourself that something is finished? When you're working with a publisher, you've got to hit milestones, you've got to make a game, you've got to have it in at a certain time, but there is still that endless want. Oh, we've got to tweak this, we've got to change this. How do you decide something's done?
You don't, and that's one of the incredible things about AAA publishing. every game I've ever been on, I've been escorted out.
Really?
And that happens to most of the art director and the creative director, where basically there's someone called a closer who comes in, and the closer tells you when the game is going to be finished on this day, and invariably you ignore that, the day of that deadline. You find, oh my God, there's this one thing I need to do. There's another thing. There's this thing. And so then you start trying to get all that stuff done, and the closer comes and forces you to physically leave the building.
I want that job. I really do. I just think that would be amazing.
I mean, it's like a bouncer from the project. He goes, you know what? You're done. Nice job. You can't come back. Bye.
Wow.
Love ya. Get out.
And because what happens creatively is, like you said, you always want to improve, and so at some point it will destabilize the shipping of the game, and you can't take the risk required to make that change. It may destabilize and cause a crash, and they can't risk that. And so even though that one little thing is fixable and it's so easy to fix and it'll only take 5 minutes, I mean, you really become like a junkie. Like, it'll be 5 minutes. Listen, I'll give you like 6 candy bars. I'll buy you whatever you want. I've literally said that, where I've been like, listen,
I'll be your best friend.
It's like, I will do anything. Just let me fix this.
Wow.
And that didn't happen with Child of Light. That part. I mean, there were a couple of things where, of course, there wasn't time to fix them. But as I have been doing this for 7 years, I am now. I don't need to be tranquilized in a sport now.
As often.
I mean, AC2 was hysterical because there was this moment. Sean, the guy in the present that we're in, introduces the puzzles, which I created and designed and wrote, and so he comes on the communicator and he says, oh, there are these weird things in the world, I need help, can you go find them? So he tells you to go find these glyphs, which then lead to the puzzles. And that conversation occurred in a white room, which is the loading screen, and the conversation was not playing, and it hadn't played ever, and I had requested it a month earlier to put in that room, and it wasn't playing, and I had been going through the whole project trying to figure out who could get it, who could fix it, who could make it play, and by the end of the month, when we were done with the game, it still wasn't playing, and the closer put it as a priority 7, which is like it would never get fixed, like it was not important to the closer. And so I went to a level designer who actually ended up as one of the level design directors on Child of Light. He's a level designer on EC2, and I went to him and I said, I need you to fix this. And he said, what priority is it? And I said, don't ask.
Don't worry about it.
And it was like,
it's priority, shut up.
It's like, listen, this whole system in the game stems from this conversation. It needs to be there. Please fix it. And he did it, and he submitted the change. And when you submit a change, the closer can see that bug was fixed because you associate the change with the bug report. And so the closer came over, and I ended up in a room for 45 minutes being yelled at, and then of course was thrown off the project. But it was worth it.
Yeah, well,
I was like, I actually walked across the room, several people started clapping because they knew that it was worth it.
You're like, now the game is a better game.
Well, it's like, I mean, I would throw myself under the bus every time if it made the game better.
Okay, I'm back to you on this one. I think that was the right play.
Yeah!
Having played the game, I gotta tell you, I think that was the right play.
Well, no one would have found them if you didn't intro them, and they're just random things, and it's like, what is this? How would
you'd have no clue. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
And the closer didn't understand that. And that's what happens, on a team, again, it's collaborative, and you have people who, like, a closer comes in at the end of the project, the closer is not familiar with the artistic goals or vision of the project, and in fact, the closer is not supposed to be that familiar because he's supposed to be, or she is supposed to be, impersonal so that they can be the bouncer. And so they kind of just take orders, and they're tough. And so, oftentimes as an artist, you're just driven crazy because they don't see why you're doing what you're doing.
Do you work with the same closer regularly?
No, and I think the company does that purposefully again because you're not supposed to be friends with the closer.
Right. Susan, when we get the micro pig for Joystiq, they can be the closer.
Okay. Who's gonna be able to say no to the micro pig? Nobody.
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 But,
So we have some questions in the chat about the difficulty levels, and if someone who's more familiar with RPGs should just jump right to hard instead of playing on normal.
I think that is true, and in fact, in a patch that's coming up, we're changing the names to casual and expert.
Interesting.
Really?
Yeah, because this has been an issue, obviously, that some people have had, and I think that the word normal is a misrepresentation, because none of us are really that normal.
Yeah.
Like, who wants to be normal, or rather, like, implying that there's one way to play that's normal is I think, too strong. And so this idea that casual is for people who want to experience the world and experience the adventure without having hard combat, and then expert is for people who love RPGs and who want to really have a challenge.
Watch the walls; they will hurt you.
Oh, I figured.
Okay.
So yes,
Yeah,
the answer to your question is that the RPG players should definitely play on.
Oh, spiders are angry! Well, those are some creepy looking spiders. I want this griffin to be my friend, Come on, buddy.
Yeah, I kind of, when I first saw the griffin, I was like, oh, he looks like he wants to talk to me. Oh, no, he doesn't.
He doesn't at all.
He really isn't. Okay.
Oh, okay, that's how you want to paralyze. I get it. I know things.
See? Also, okay. I know you're half paying attention because you're trying to do an interview, and I completely respect that. But when you don't have a prayer of casting before one of the enemies gets to you, then choose defend.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yup.
And then you jump ahead anyway, so it's almost like you didn't lose a turn.
Exactly.
I see.
Yeah, like with all these, because these are fast-moving guys, and even if you slow them, I mean, because Rebella's tumble is super fast, so you might have a choice, but everything Aurora does is kind of slow, so defend is often the best choice for her.
Yeah. I'm not great. But I do have the excuse that I have been trying to talk to you guys while doing this.
There's very much an ebb and flow to the combat that you learn gradually as you play, and as the combat gets more difficult, you learn, like, oh, now I gotta defend, and now I gotta try and interrupt, and this guy moves faster, so I should slow him, and there's definitely a nuance to all of the fights.
So by the time you get to Sephiroth,
oh yeah,
you're
so
good.
Yeah.
Now at least I'm not going to get paralyzed.
Well, what you should do is have someone else play Igniculus and keep you alive.
Oh, that's the other thing, because if you hover Igniculus, I can't say his name. Little Firefly dude, over one of your guys, he will heal you as long as he's got...
Yeah, as long as he's got juice, right?
Yeah.
And
that Firefly juice.
Yeah, and you get Jeffrey, all the stages have juice, like Firefly juice, like wishes.
Yeah, you can get wishes in the middle of fights, and then they recharge over time.
They do recharge.
Like an epic boss fight, you're just praying that the bush reactivates before you're dead.
It's so true.
And then you get the worst is that it pauses, like this moment right now with the spotlights. It's in pause, so the bush will never recharge during that moment.
You're like, Bush, come on, do me a solid. I just need a few points. Come on. Now, does the rate that they charge change in the higher difficulty level?
I am not exactly sure, but I believe so. But also,
Okay.
the enemy hit points.
Oh,
And,
sure.
Yeah, I mean, it really makes a big difference in how the game plays. In fact, it's nearly impossible to beat the game without partners in Expert.
Right. There you go, chat. There's your... Because there was somebody in chat who says they really, really want a challenge. Okay, you want a challenge. Aurora only on... There you go.
Oh yeah, well, and in fact, you can actually sort of manage the challenge of the game yourself too, because when you are playing, if you blind enemies in the world, and right now you're in a battle arena, but when you're in the world, if you blind enemies, in fact, you can pass them in combat, and so then you could also do a hard run where you only fight bosses.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
And that would just be so intense because then you don't level up.
Right.
So basically, if you're in hard and you're thinking this is too easy, just blind a bunch of enemies and then enter a new battle and you'll be in super hard.
Wow, I think I might actually die.
It happens.
I think I'm going to die. I love that moment.
Health potions! Oh my god!
What?
Yeah.
You've got health potions! You've got like a case of health potions, bro!
Yeah, but you still have to cast, right?
No, potions instant! Yeah, Rubella's healing is casting, but you've got health potions that you just immediately chug.
Yeah.
Susan, I'm real good.
You're very good at this.
I'm very good at video games in general. Get out of here, Griffin. Done with you. 80,000 points from Gryffindor forever. Well, we've got just a few minutes left here on today's stream. This has been... So Jeffrey, I'm not sure if you remember this also, but this is when I first tried this. I was playing the PC build, and it was just breaking.
It was slowly. It was like melting slowly.
Yeah, melting slowly as I played. At one point, Aurora stopped jumping the appropriate height, and so I couldn't get up into rooms. And
that is all. That is all now that the game's been released. The PC version's sterling, so that will not happen.
Sterling and perfect in every way. I will say
think it was the computer. The computer was overheating.
Yeah,
really weird.
This has been a much more pleasant experience, despite my inability to perform. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna keep playing. Everybody, Child of Light is out now. It was released this past Tuesday. The PC version is out, right? Everything is out?
Yep.
So you can go, you can play it on Xbox 360, Xbox One, PlayStation 4, the whole shebang. Is there going to be any possibility of any other versions in the future?
There is always a possibility.
Always a possibility. I see. I see. How tantalizing! That fight took a long time because I am terrible. Yeah.
You're not using your oculi properly. And
I'm using my oculi.
You're not properly.
I equipped them. I just ran.
Yeah, but did you equip them to take advantage of their weaknesses?
Oh. I never fought them before.
Oh God.
It was my first time.
You're killing me here.
I'm trying so hard. I said take only what you need to survive.
Typically speaking, creatures in the same area tend to have the same weakness.
That's true. That's very accurate. Well, I think that if I just try to fight these spiders, they will probably kill me. So here is as good a place as any to bring our stream to a close. Jeffrey Yohalem, thank you so much for coming on the show today. This was a real treat.
It was my pleasure, really. It was. It's fun to watch someone exploring the world of JRPGs for the first time.
I see.
I'm kidding.
Sick burn.
I see.
Greatest moment.
Especially with a coach of such caliber guiding you.
I like him. We have to have him back on.
I see exactly how that goes for me. And that's exactly how it goes every single Tuesday and Thursday here on Joystiq Streams. It's nothing but non-stop slights and insults and truth. Nothing but truth all the time.
And Spaceballs.
And Spaceballs, and a lot, and an inordinate number of Spaceballs references. Thank you so much, everybody in the chat, for hanging out with us today. Really, really nice of you to swing by. Susan, Alexander, thank you guys for joining me as well. If you guys want more Joystiq Streams action, we will be back on Tuesday afternoon at 4 p.m., where we'll be playing Full Bore, which is about being a bore. Not like you're falling asleep, but the piggy variety, like Pumbaa. I don't know why I had to say it like that. Pumbaa! The pre-sequel.
Stop, Jeffrey, I'm sorry.
And I was a young warthog.
That'll be happening on Tuesday! And then on Thursday, we're gonna be doing some weirdness. A huge chunk of the Joystiq crew is going to be playing League of Legends for the first time, because only one of us knows how to play it. And we're going to be doing a boot camp, learning how to play it, but also learning how to play it with us will be the voice cast of League of Legends, including Adam Harrington, who's done work in The Walking Dead and The Wolf Among Us.
Watch our Wolf Among Us stream from last week, because it was amazing.
It was pretty entertaining. And if you want more Joystiq action, if you would like to read our review of Child of Light, go to joystiq.com. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook and Google+. Just show up in those places and search for Joystiq with a Q, and all of the magic will be happening there. And we give away stuff there as well. If you went to Twitter today, we were giving away codes for dog avatars from Call of Duty. Why? We don't even know. We have no idea where the code came from. It just appeared like magic, and then we asked people to show us their dogs. These are the kinds of things that happen when you follow us. And they're delightful in every way. Until then, be well. We'll see you next time, everybody. Thank you again, Jeff. Bye.
Thank you again, Jeffrey. Thank you so much.
It was really a pleasure. Thank you guys, too.